And the ultimate had to be moment of week, what is now, I guess, 17. The Broncos have fired Nathaniel Hackett after the 4-11 beginning to his coaching career. What is, this had to happen. I mean, I think apparently only the third one and done of the 21st century, joining, of course, the fabled Bobby Petrino of the Atlanta Falcons, who literally left a note that he was leaving to go to Arkansas to coach, just left a note that dad was going out for cigarettes. And he was at least honest. He did not say he was coming back.
You got to hand it to him.
You got to hand it to him. He left for cigarettes and was upfront that he would not be coming back. And, of course, our dear friend Urban Meyer from the 2021 Jacksonville Jaguars. But Nathaniel Hackett's just been overwhelmed since day one on the job. And now the question turns to Russell Wilson and how in the world they can salvage this situation, because they can't cut Russell Wilson or trade Russell Wilson unless they're willing to have, like, more debt than, I don't know, like every Western bank after just printing money after COVID. Am I right?
No,
am I right? I don't know anything about money or debt.
There's a salary cap here. Is another important consideration.
I don't know anything about how monetary policy works, but they can't cut Russell Wilson, basically. Wouldn't work. So what is a realistic salvage plan for this team, and what kind of coach should they hire? Who wants to take this first? I'm sure this is a lovely topic that you want to talk about.
I mean, I do think it's interesting that they did have to fire him, because I had kind of a theory that, you've got this new ownership group. You have a GM. I think the GM's in the second year in the job.
Second or third,
but trying to, obviously save his own job. So it would make sense, actually, in some ways, to like have kept Hackett in place. And then you're starting fresh with a new coach next year. And it's like, it was all Hackett, obviously. Russ is going to be good. But Russ is going to look terrible for the rest of this season as well. Under,
only 2 games,
the interim coach. Only 2 games. But Hackett had just been so bad, and the team was just falling apart that, they obviously had to make the move. But, yeah, it's what kind of sell can you really make for, like, a new coach to come in? I don't think you're getting one of the top offensive candidates, right? I mean,
is there any can Sean Payton convince himself that he can have Drew Brees type success?
No.
It used to kind of be Russell Wilson's game, where he was pretty accurate and efficient, and he could hit deep balls down the field when he needed to, but that's just like all been gone this year.
I think Sean Payton would, if he were on this show, and if he's listening, Sean, if you're listening, I'm sure you're laughing. You're having a good laugh.
Yeah,
because he's not saving up his capital, his coaching capital for the worst situation in pro sports.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he might think it's a better situation than like the Colts.
They have no draft picks. They're chained to a terrible quarterback. The best the Broncos can do is to hire some like young, hungry coach.
They just did that though.
No, they didn't. They took a guy who would be
find someone hungrier.
Yeah, they would take a guy who was bait. Also, he's not young. Yeah.
Right? He's not young, but he was a hungry first time.
I'm talking about a 30-year-old. I'm talking about Sean, like a McVay type hire.
Well, there's no way
they have any kids.
That, by the way.
Huh? What'd you say?
Does McVay have any kids? That's the type of
right. Yeah, I think he has a 2-year-old. So we have to look into that.
6-year-old Seamus McVay. Like big challenge.
Someone who will come in and make it so that the quarterback doesn't matter. Because that's the only way that the Seahawks were ever good with Russell Wilson is when they de-emphasized his role in the offense. The one time, and I know you guys are old enough to remember this, they let Russ cook. In the end, it was catastrophic.
Well, it was really good. Like the appetizer and like the salad, and then the main course arrived. And like the restaurant burned down.
Yeah, so Pete Carroll knew, and he knew what none of us knew, which you can't base an offense on Russell Wilson. Like you have to make it so that, like with Brock Purdy or Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco, they don't matter. It doesn't matter who's quarterback for the Niners. Anybody can do it. Literally anybody.
Yeah, so, the Mike McDaniel would be like because Mike McDaniel wasn't like a particularly sought after coach, right? I mean, he was up and coming, but
yeah,
he kind of was, but he wasn't like the name, and has obviously turned out to be a really good hire. But they kind of need someone like that who can. I think maybe a Shanahan style system is what you need here. The other issue with Russ,
what every team needs is a Shanahan style system.
Probably. Russ he turns 35 next November. Like that is you. It's a tough sell. You're taking your first season as the Broncos head coach. Your quarterback, who's coming off a horrible year, is turning 35 years old. I mean, I don't know, but I do worry about if the Broncos can recover at all, because their running game is absolutely terrible. You know, are they going to?
They're going to use their second round pick on a running back, by the way. I would just take that as an article of faith.
Well, I mean, they have Javonte Williams coming back from injury, so that would be a catastrophe. I'm not saying they won't do it.
It's going to be the Seahawks method. They just need to go the full Seahawks method. I think instead of trying to find the next McVay or Shanahan or LaFleur, I think they need to recreate the Seahawks. They need to hire a hard-ass retread coach who just has no respect for Russell Wilson. It's like, yeah, sorry, man. Like, you got to just do nothing. And because they've got a good enough defense, and they could have a good enough running game pretty quickly, I think. And they still have two solid-ish receivers.
Yeah,
I think they need to go really old school. Is frankly what I believe.
They did go really old school this year, though. They were
not really. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett does not have an old school personality. He's a doormat.
Sure,
like, he's a total. Like, I think we're seeing sometimes the virtues of, like, I don't think this is a situation like a whiz kid, like, I'm a really nice, friendly Kevin O'Connell guy is going to solve. And, like, we're seeing occasionally why you need a hard ass.
You're saying Mike Zimmer needs to come in.
Honestly, yes. I kind of am. Or maybe Gary Kubiak for, like, the fifth time. He's not really a hard ass. Maybe he can have his fifth tour of duty with the Broncos. They got to hire a retread. I actually am a firm believer in this. I've never obviously uttered these words in my entire life, but I just do not think it's going to work. It cannot be. This is a situation where I categorically cannot be a first-time head coach. There are so many fires probably going on in that locker room. Like, it cannot. It has to be someone who has experience, like, the interpersonal dynamic and, like, controlling a locker room, basically. I know I'm sounding. I'm 36. And I know I'm making myself sound 72.
No. You're right, though. It's not just the on-field situation. It's the off-field situation. It's the fact that the entire team hates the highest paid guy. Right, like there's like a clear disdain for Russell Wilson during plays. Players are saying, "What are you doing?" You know, Cortland Sutton was doing this against the Rams. It's remarkable. So you're gonna have to walk into a situation and put out those fires. The off-field stuff is more concerning, honestly, than the on-field stuff, and that's saying something.
Yeah, I guess what I would just say, I agree with everything you're saying about the off-field stuff. I would just note that the Broncos generally did play fairly conservative this year, or they were really dedicated to balance. They just refused. I guess
they were dedicated to balance, but Pat, I think you could tell it was kind of in a nonsensical way. Like, there was no
in a nonsensical way.
Yeah. It wasn't kind of a Matt LaFleur balance, or even if you don't necessarily agree with the way the Packers run their offense, you can tell there's a grander vision at play. Or it seemed like with Nathaniel Hackett, who came from that system. He's just well, we were usually pretty balanced in Green Bay, so I guess that just means call 50% runs and 50% passes, right? The sequencing doesn't matter, right, guys?
Yeah, and from that perspective, I think anything's better. Like a Steve Wilkes guy who comes in, and I mean, I think he's fairly old school and has just gone full establish it with the Panthers, and it's kind of worked. I mean, so I am open to that.
364 yards at halftime against the Lions for the Panthers.
Yeah, the balance thing is not working. You got to go extreme one way or another.
Yeah. You can't. It's just a class 2. Balance for the sake of balance doesn't get you anywhere. The sequencing is very important. And Nathaniel Hackett didn't seem like he knew how to sequence an offense whatsoever. So they got to bring back John Fox. Is what I'm saying. I mean, are there any good retreads? How do you say it? Is it retread or retread, by the way?
It's retread.
All right. Is there any good retreads out there? I can't think of any.
Is Bill Parcells alive?
He would be friggin' perfect, but he's 80. He would be the guy for the job, to be honest. Guess who's a Bill Parcells acolyte? Sean Payton.
Well, after what Matt Patricia's shown with Mac Jones, maybe they could bring in him.
Oh, it's true. Yeah.
What about, is Vrabel got any guys? That's kind of what you're saying, right? You need a variable.
Yeah, you kind of need a Vrabel type. Yeah. I mean, is there a Tomlin? Tomlin doesn't have any good. Tomlin hasn't have much of a coaching tree because he always has the same offensive coordinator for 9 years.
Yeah.
Trying to think. He has no good reach. Yeah, they should hire a first-time head coach. I think that's pretty obvious that they should hire like a first-year guy with no experience, and no one's laughing.
Look, what I meant was someone who would get creative with the system, but who also would need, as you said, to be a hard ass.
The thing is, I don't think there's any room for creativity here anymore because I think he's just that bad, and like the creativity is just going back to pretending that Russell Wilson is like not the quarterback and is just someone to be ashamed of.
Yeah, I mean the on-field stuff. I forget about the off-field for a second. The on-field, the key to the on-field stuff is just making it so that Russell Wilson doesn't have to do anything.
Yes, maybe Norv Turner.
But this really was the worst of both worlds because they were running the ball really inefficiently, and then they were passing like a decent amount in these suboptimal passing situations. So like if you're not going to have them do. Like there's a couple different ways to do this. Like the way the Lions do this, I think is super sharp, where they are trying to hide Goff, but they do set him up for success. That would be my preferred strategies. Hire the Lions OC. There's your hire. Now
it's just so complicated because it has to be clear. I mean, we're not inside that locker room. It would certainly appear Russell Wilson is not held in high regard right now by either his coaches or his teammates.
No,
and it has to be someone who's coming in as like who's been like given the assignment, like, yeah, you need to like take over the locker room. And
if I was advising anyone to take this job, especially a young offensive mind, I would tell them do not do it.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.